everybody, and welcome to Edmonds Community College today. My name is Mauri, and today I have two very exciting guests to talk to you about, both professors here at Edmonds Community College, and thanks to them, Edmonds Community College is now known for its cutting-edge technology in digital forensics. So let me introduce my guest. First of all, on my left, Mr. Steve Hailey, welcome.
Hello, thank you.
And Mr. Mike Andrew, welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Now, just to get the basics down, because maybe a lot of us don't know the terminology, what is digital forensics, Steve?
Well, digital forensics really is the application of computer science and investigative techniques in the interest of determining potential evidence from computers and computer media.
And how important is this field in today's world?
It's extremely important, and it's becoming more and more important all the time because really this is all driven by law, it's driven by cases, it's driven by intrusions and protecting data. And as we become more technologically advanced and more widespread as far as information technology goes, then you have to have some means of trying to track down what happened, who did it, and when it took place.
Well, I'm assuming I don't need this kind of an expert. Who does need a forensics expert, and why?
Well, many cases today involve computer evidence of some sort, and so when evidence needs to be presented to the court or evidence needs to be authenticated in just about any type of legal case that you can think of, you need to have a computer forensics expert do that in order for the evidence to be accepted by the court.
So these are both criminal and civil cases?
Yes.
Criminal cases.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
What about employers? What about in the rest of the business world?
Well, it really has come into play in every aspect of information technology and really every aspect of business because information technology has become so much a part of how we operate in the business world. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 90% of documents created in the business world are never printed. They're all stored in electronic format. And so on both sides of that equation, when it comes to the employers trying to track the data and what the employees are doing as opposed, and also the employees and trying to track the security of their private and personal information as well, it follows the whole spectrum.
Well, tell me a little bit about your own backgrounds. How did you get to be digital forensics experts? Tell me about your educational and your professional background.
Sure. Well, I've been involved with computers since around 1983.
Ooh, that was the dark ages.
Yes, yes. That's when we still booted up the floppy disk.
Ooh, floppy disk.
To start the computer. I've worked for the Department of Defense. I worked for Microsoft. I've worked for Boeing. In 1997, I got involved in information security and digital forensics, and started a company, Cybersecurity Institute.
When you say you get involved, Steve,
Yes.
you actually came up with some of the techniques to do this, did you not?
Well, you know, actually working with Mike, we've developed several techniques. As a matter of fact, we've published a few white papers. Mike has presented at the IEEE, and also there's a presentation that we did for the American Academy for Forensic Science.
The IEEE is?
Yeah, Institute of Electrical Engineers and Engineering, yeah.
Oh, great,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
So go ahead about your background.
Yeah, so in 1997, got involved in information security and digital forensics while I was still working at the Boeing company. In 1999, I stopped working at Boeing and started teaching here at the college, and I believe in '99 we ran one of the first classes on digital forensics here in the state.
99.
Yeah, at the Business and Technology Center when I started working here, and since then, working with Mike, we've established the Information Security and Digital Forensics program. We have a 2-year degree. We have a network security certificate, and we also have a digital forensics certificate. And all of these programs are very popular.
And they are unique in the state, are they not?
Yes, they are unique. One of the aspects that makes our program unique is that we're starting to teach physical recovery of data. So for example, if you have a hard drive that has been water damaged, smoke damaged, for example, or you've had a head crash, you've probably heard of hard drives crashing.
Oh, yeah.
Those need to have a physical recovery, which means that you actually take the hard drive apart or the storage media apart and you replace various components. And as far as I know, we're the only college in the state right now that's offering that type of training.
And that involves a clean room.
That's
Right.
correct, yes.
Tell me about a clean room. Describe that for me.
Well, it's really an environment that provides a sterile, surrounding for you to go ahead and get into these drives and open them up and repair the pieces that need to be repaired, because they're very, very high tolerance devices. Very little clearance is involved, and so a clean room environment is something that we do, and we do it in a very unique way. It doesn't require a complete, total clean room setup, where the students can actually work with this in really almost a semi-open environment. And so the clean room purpose is to make sure that we keep that as sterile as we possibly can. But here at the college, and the way we've approached it, and the way that Steve has put the lab together, it allows the students to actually, they don't have to suit up, for example, in a complete sterile suit like you would see when you look on a kind of a space or age type of
seen it on
situation.
TV.
Exactly, right. You don't have to wear the breather unit or anything like that. So it's actually it's a good combination for an educational teaching environment.
We have some special devices. We have what's called a Deep Spar, and we have an Atola Insight that we connect to the computers in the workbench, and they allow us to communicate with the hard drives at a very low level to help us facilitate the data recovery. So this is actually a donor laptop hard drive. As you can see, the read-write heads have been removed, and we've actually taken those out and placed those in another drive where the read-write heads crash. And so what the computers allow us to do here is go and connect these units up. This is called an Atola Insight, and it allows us to communicate with the hard drive at a very low level, so we can adjust for example, the height of the read-write heads above the platters and so forth, in order to actually facilitate the data recovery.
Tell us then about your background. We've heard about Steve's. How did you get into this field?
Sure. I haven't been around information technology quite as long as Steve has, but I've been probably about 14, 15 years now. And I'm actually a result of the program here at Edmonds Community College.
Really?
Before there ever was a digital forensics degree or certificate or anything of that nature, I went through and got my 2-year degree here from the college. And so in a way, I'm kind of a product of the college itself.
That is fantastic.
Yeah,
I'm so glad to hear that.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a very unique perspective, because I've been teaching here since 2005 now. And of course, as Steve had mentioned, that he and I teach together. We have a business that we do together for conducting forensic investigations and training. So it's really kind of all worked together very well. And on top of that, I actually do some outside contract teaching. I teach for the Department of Homeland Security, cyber terrorism defense, and throughout the country. I just got back from Dover, Delaware, on that, and some other classes. And so that's kind of my background.
Let's talk about your travel, because you have also done international work, the two of you. What's been your most recent endeavor internationally?
Internationally, it's been the Middle East, at the United Arab Emirates over in Dubai. As a matter of fact, we've been going back and forth there. I'll be heading out again here shortly for another trip to Abu Dhabi, back in that area. So that's just one of the areas internationally, but that's the most recent one.
That's pretty exciting. How do our students benefit from your international work? Do they get some kind of opportunity to learn what you've learned in those overseas trips?
Well, when we're training abroad, we train a lot of law enforcement. For example, we train law enforcement in Dubai, Sharjah, a place called Ajman. Mike's going to Abu Dhabi. We tend to pick up techniques and procedures from the law enforcement folks that they're using in those regions, perhaps some things that we didn't know before, and we're able to bring those back to our students. As far as opportunities for our students, we're hoping that we get really, really busy, and if that occurs, then we're going to create some opportunities for our students to actually go with us and help us do some training.
That's great. Now, you do work for the Department of Homeland Security occasionally, but you are also working in the Middle East. How does the State Department or the Department of Homeland Security feel about you helping foreign nations?
Actually, the way that you phrase that probably is, I wouldn't quite phrase it that way. It's not so much helping foreign nations, because what we're really, and by the way, they have no problem with it. That's been confirmed. But what we're really talking about here is the idea of a foundational approach when it comes to digital forensics. And when you look across the world in particular, or even across the country, state-by-state basis, everyone has a different approach and perspective based upon the laws that they have on the books and how they approach this. And when you look at what we're doing in the Middle East and some of the other countries, really they're in a developmental stage when it comes to their legal system, the way that they handle this. How do they even wrap their minds around the idea of computer trespass? The idea of a cyber stalking law, for example, is really unheard of in a lot of these countries. And so not only are we over there talking about foundational issues for digital forensics, but we're over there actually teaching the judiciary, the judges themselves, and educating them and teaching them on, okay, this is how this compares to law in the United States, or for example, law in the European Union. This is how you translate the idea of a computer trespass or our normal trespass into computer trespass. This is how you translate the idea of you know, for example, with cybercrime. You know, you have two different locations. Okay, where do you prosecute? Do you prosecute where the victim's located at, which could be hundreds of miles away? Or do you prosecute where the attack occurred from the attacker's machine? And these are simply questions that come up. And
or
so
it could be a world away. It could be half a world away.
It could be half a world away, exactly.
It's quite international.
Exactly. So what I want to make sure, I guess, is to get the idea across. We're not over there teaching deep, dark secrets about how to break encryption or anything of that nature. It's foundational approaches and methodologies to forensic investigations, no matter what the cause might be.
Where is this field going? What's the future of it?
Well, the future of this is dynamic. In other words, it's very fluid because it moves as technology moves. And right now, where it is moving rapidly is to the idea that, number one, it's becoming a very mature forensic science, which is really interesting because it was only introduced formally as and approved as a forensic science about 3 years ago by the Academy of Forensic Sciences. But we now have this kind of common body of knowledge that people are building upon. And so where we're at now is the idea of having just like any other technology field, is that you have to have a basic knowledge before you can actually go into the more advanced areas of that. Digital forensics is now moving into very, very advanced areas. We're starting to talk about solid-state drives, and that's not even talking about the idea of network forensics and the different devices involved in that. So really, the program here at Edmonds Community College that we're teaching is becoming a foundational program. If you want to have anything to do with this field in the future, you need to have these building blocks underneath you. It's just that simple.
Very exciting. Very exciting for our students. The whole area of international reminds me of terrorism, because it doesn't take an airplane flying into a building anymore to bring systems down if you are a terrorist. And they're getting more and more sophisticated in their ability to work with computers. So how vulnerable are we, or any nation really, as from cyber terrorism?
Well, I think first and foremost that everyone is vulnerable. But you know, our government has some very good programs in place. As a matter of fact, one of the, as Mike mentioned, he teaches for the Department of Homeland Security, and I do as well. Not as much as Mike has been, but they're actively providing training to various government organizations throughout the United States on how to combat cyber terrorism. And there's various grants in place to help fund the educational programs.
Good. Good. You have 30 certifications at my last count. It could be beyond that now, but
yes.
What about our students? Do they need that level in order to get a job in the field?
Having 30 certifications is not necessary to go out there and find employment. One of the reasons that I have so many certifications is due to the various classes that we teach that lead to different certifications. I think right now, between Mike and myself, we're teaching around 11 or 12 different classes. And so there's a lot of different certifications out there. There's students that come in and they want to achieve a various certification for their job, or perhaps it's a requirement of their employer. And so one of the things that I've always done is I've always made sure that if I'm teaching a class that leads to a specific certification, that I also have that certification as well. So it's more of a credential thing, if you will, for the students. The student knows that I know what I'm talking about, and I can help them achieve a particular certification because I've done it myself.
That's great.
So, and it also looks good on the resume.
It does. Where do most of your students end up working at maybe they get the 2-year degree or a level of certifications, but can you give me an overall idea of where they go for jobs? Because that's the most important thing, is
Certainly.
education leads to jobs.
Well, based upon the feedback that I get from the students, I think what you're looking at here is they are going into general information technology in some cases, but it's not on the help desk side or things of that nature. What they're getting into or getting involved in, and keep in mind, much of this has to do with what else they pursue while they're here. For example, they may go for a 2-year information technology degree in network technology. They may go for a 2-year degree in information security with a digital forensic certificate. So how they combine that comes into play with what they're looking for. But in general, what you have is a situation where, again, this goes to the foundational aspect of forensics. Just having this in your hip pocket emphasizes and enhances their chances to get a general information technology degree in network engineering, in systems engineering, systems design, something of that nature. That all depends on the mix that they want to put together in that. So really it's across the entire spectrum of information technology. We have some students that jump immediately into the idea of, for example, working for law enforcement in some capacity, doing specifically digital forensics. So there really is no set pattern, but it benefits them in every aspect.
Can you name some of the employers that you've sent students to?
Oh, sure. As a matter of fact, we have students that work for the Washington State Attorney General, Nordstrom, Boeing, Microsoft. I mean, really, just about any company that you can think of here in the Puget Sound area that has an information technology component needs
Probably
folks.
all of them,
yes,
the big ones.
Yes, they need people that are skilled in information security and digital forensics.
Are we getting many students referred to us from those businesses or from those agencies? Are they, in other words, asking their employees to take classes?
We have quite a few folks that come here from Boeing, but we've also had, we've had students from various law enforcement agencies. I think as far as the reputation for the program, it's definitely, our program is definitely becoming known. But we're getting students from all over the place. Matter of fact, we've had folks that drive up here on the weekend from Oregon to go ahead and take our program.
To attend a Saturday class.
Yeah,
yes.
to attend a class on Saturday. Right.
That's great.
As a matter of fact, just to follow up on that, we've actually had students that have moved from other states and changed their complete residence for 2 years so they could attend the program. So
Well, that's very important.
So the EDCC program is becoming widely known.
What makes a good digital forensics student? You know, we have our average age at this college is somewhere around 26, 27, and we do have people coming from high school who don't know what they want to do.
Right.
How would you describe a really good student for this field? What do they need to, what qualities do they need to have?
Well, I think some of them are personal qualities in the way that you approach that as a field and as a profession. So we've got two things going on. One is, what does it take to succeed and learn academically? That's an entirely different story. That's simply dedication and an interest. Your typical young person that has grown up now with computers and has an aptitude for these things and has a specific interest. And then professionally, the standpoint would be, attention to detail, all of those things, professionalism, just like what you would carry into any other, college career or any other educational environment, with more of a technological slant. That's the best way I could put it.
You mentioned professionalism, and it reminded me of a phrase I ran across when I was reading about you two, and that is ethical hacking. What is meant by ethical hacking? We all know what hacking is,
Sure.
I think we do.
Yeah. Sure. Well, really, when you get right down to it, ethical hacking is going in to an organization or to a network and figuring out what the problems are, what the vulnerabilities are, before hackers do. So it's actually, a lot of the tools that we use to do ethical hacking are the very same tools that a hacker would use or an intruder would use to get into your network. So it's all about figuring out what a malicious individual or group of individuals are going to do to try to get into your information systems before they do, and then making sure that you have the correct protective measures in place.
That leads me to a whole line of questions about consumers, what consumers need to know about digital forensics. What do I need to know about the security of my little home network? And it is networked, it's Wi-Fi'd, so tell me what I need to know.
Sure. Well, just a couple things from my perspective, and I'm sure Michael have some things to add. But one of the things that we see a lot is that people do not change their passwords on a regular basis, and they tend to use the same password for all of their accounts.
Whoops, guilty.
Yeah, and a lot of people are using For example, their social security number is their password, or part of their social security number, their password, their birth dates, and so on and so forth. We actually have a program that we use in the ethical hacking and in digital forensics that allows us to create a profile of an individual. So, for example, we would input their social security number, their birth date, the birth dates of their relatives, perhaps favorite musicians. I mean, just the whole gamut of
Any information you can gather.
any information on an individual. And so we were able to put these into our program, and the program generates passwords that these people may have used. And
Right.
about, I'd say between 30 to 40% of the time, we're successful in cracking passwords based on this program. So it's very important that a person chooses a difficult to guess password, that they change their password on a regular basis, and that they don't use any information that someone could find out about you. It's very easy nowadays to find information out about people. As a matter of fact, if you have access to the right databases, you can get people's social security numbers. So that's one of the biggest problems that we see, is people use the same password and they don't change their password on a regular basis.
You make me think, though, when you talk about the personal information you can get, has social networking helped hackers find out about
without a
people?
doubt.
I mean, there's a
Absolutely.
lot of personal information on
Absolutely.
Yes,
Facebook.
without question. As a matter of fact, that's really the one thing that I might add to what Steve had just talked about, is that in addition to, of course, changing passwords and security, really what it boils down to in many regards is where you go on the internet, because you have to accept a certain amount of risk if you're going to go out to the internet, and you're going to go to particularly social web sites, Facebook and MySpace and all these others. And there's a certain degree of risk that goes along with that. That almost has to be accepted if you're going to be doing that. But really, when it comes to the idea of keeping yourself safe, there are just a couple of habits that need to be kept in mind. So if you're going to go out and you're going to incur that risk, you're going to visit those types of places, then you have to at least take the next step, which is that you're not downloading games that, from unfamiliar websites. All of these things. This goes hand in hand, and piggybacking on what Steve said about you don't open up attachments from emails that come from people you don't recognize. So we have to accept a certain amount of risk, and particularly when it comes to social networking sites, but we can still use some caution when it comes to the habits that we have when we go out there, and that's what we recommend for the average consumer, as you talk about. Just be aware, be careful, don't open up these emails from unrecognized sources. Trust me, if they need to get hold of you, they will try again. You don't need to open up the first one that comes through if you don't recognize
That's a
it,
good point.
particularly if it has an attachment. Delete it or ignore it or whatever the case may be, right?
It's good advice.
Yeah, and just something I'd like to add to that. Mike and I, recently worked on a case where an individual went out to one of these social networking sites, inadvertently downloaded some malware to their computer. Now this was a comptroller at a very large company, and this malware, well, the end result was that around $500,000 was stolen. And it was all because they went out to one of these social networking sites, found something that was a little unfamiliar to them, but decided to download it anyway. That placed malware on the workstation, and that allowed attackers to actually get in and retrieve credit card information.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we were actually able to do an analysis and trace back and find an exact timeline from the moment that it was compromised to the time that actually the password had been stolen to
Really?
access their account. And essentially the money was transferred from the bank payroll account for this large corporation late on a Friday afternoon, and 5 minutes later was someplace in the Slavic countries, Ukraine or something of that nature, and it's gone. There's no way you can get it. And this all started out from Facebook access. So
Wow.
these are the kinds of things that we teach students how to do in class. Is how
That's
to
a
dissect
great
this.
example of,
Yeah.
of your work. It really is a great example. And it also makes me think, what are corporations doing in terms of making new rules for their employees? Are all corporations aware of the risks, and are they setting
sure.
guidelines for their employees? Can you describe what they're doing?
Well, most of your major companies out there right now have what's called an acceptable use policy, which states what employees can and cannot do. But really, above and beyond that, you need to have a comprehensive information security policy. that talks about where the information is stored, what level of encryption is being used, who has access to what information, and so forth. And this has resulted in an even bigger need for folks to be versed in information security, and then actually the digital forensic side of things when you have to go in and do an investigation. If someone does intrude on your network, or perhaps you have an employee on the inside of the company that's doing something that they're not supposed to do. So most of the companies that we deal with in the area are doing what they're supposed to do. But as Mike mentioned, there's still a level of risk. Whenever you have people interfacing with computers and information going across networks and across the internet, there's an inherent level of risk there. So it really boils down to how much risk do you want to accept.
Right. And mitigating that risk to whatever degree you possibly can.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
You think these corporations are pretty aware of it at this point?
I think they're very aware of it at this point.
You hear about it almost every other day.
Right. And the challenge they're up against, like everyone else, is you have operational concerns, you have budgetary concerns, and particularly in this environment today, you have there's just a whole host of things that come into play about how well they're able to mitigate that risk. Because the idea of eliminating risk from an information security standpoint is it's a fallacy. You cannot do this. Now, you may take an isolated portion of your particular system or something. You may be able to eliminate the risk from that. But as an overall posture for the organization, you can't do it. All you can do is mitigate it to whatever degree you can based upon the resources you have at hand and the training and knowledge that's available to you. So it's always going to be there.
Which means it's a very secure field for people to go into.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You guys remember Y2K, right? The
yes.
scare that the whole computer systems were going to shut down because they hadn't changed the year.
Right.
That's all well past us. Is there anything like that that could possibly happen in the future?
Well, now you're asking us to speculate. Steve, you want to start with that one? Or?
Well, the way that I will answer that question is just to say, yes, it's possible. What those potential issues and problems could be at this point in time, we don't know.
We can speculate a bit, though. I mean, there's some potential. There are some potential, suspects out there. The smart grid that they're coming online with, the electrical power grid, becoming more and more automated. There is concern about that, and really the reason why I bring that up is it simply illustrates the point we've been making all along. The more automated we get, the more we have computer systems being controlled by algorithms and programs and instruction sets that are independent of human interaction. The better chance there is that someone can take advantage of that, and if they do take advantage of that, they can compromise a lot of things in a real big hurry.
Very well said.
So.
That pretty much sums it up. Steve, you wrote something in an article called Catch Cyber Criminals by Thinking Like Them.
Yes.
So how does that work? How do you think like a cyber criminal?
That was actually an article that I wrote for Law Enforcement Magazine. They asked me to write an article on how hackers think, and this is one of the things that we talk about in our Certified Ethical Hacker course. Is these are the steps that a hacker is going to go through to try to get into your information systems. And so it's really a methodology. And just one of the examples here that I can give you, social engineering is a big part of thinking like a hacker. You would be surprised what type of information you can get just by calling someone up on the phone, say the help desk of a company, and saying that you're a user. You've got 15 minutes to get a presentation out, very important presentation, and you're locked out of the system. You need to have your password reset. This is something that we've actually done. We've done this with some large companies in the area, and we've been able to get into the information systems just by acting like we are a user that works there.
That's what you mean by social engineering.
Yes,
Right.
ma'am. Yeah.
Interesting.
And that's one of the aspects that the article covers.
Seems to me that some of these cyber criminals don't have much, well, this is all from news reports that I've been hearing, but some of them don't have much more of a motive than to prove they can do it. Do you find that true?
Yes, there are some, as I like to put it, there are some people that wanted the red tricycle when they were a kid and ended up with the green one, and
been angry ever since.
They've been angry ever since.
They've never recovered.
And they're just out there to prove that they can do it.
In fact, some of these international or some of the big hacking stories that I've read about have actually been, there's a group that takes responsibility for them. I can't remember the name of the group, but...
Well, there's various groups out there that take responsibility for
Anonymous.
Yeah.
That's
right.
it. That's the
Sure.
one I was thinking of, Anonymous, right.
Yes.
So you've run across a lot of these personalities in your criminal work when you go to court to testify against
Yes.
them.
Yes.
Is there one thing they have in common? What makes them good digital hackers? What makes them good digital criminals, if you will?
Well, I would really have to say, you know, one, you know, a lot of these folks are programmers, and they understand how things work. They understand how information flows through a network. They understand how security measures work when you're logging onto a system. They understand how encryption works and so forth. And a lot of these folks have actually written programs to allow you to access systems securely, to actually use encryption, to encrypt files and other pieces of information. And so, you know, besides having some very good technical skills, I would also have to say, a lot of these folks are really good at social engineering.
Yeah.
So
They can be charming, you mean?
they can be very charming. A lot of the time, the technical solution doesn't work because we're seeing more and more folks put protective measures in place that they should have. So more often than not, it's merely calling up the help desk or contacting someone on the inside of the company to get a password reset, to get access to a router or something to that effect, and then you basically have the keys to the door and you can walk right in.
It's all pretty scary to me. Let's go back to students for a minute.
Sure.
Let's say a student is walking in the door today and is interested in this field, or happens to be skimming through the television and gets this interview and says, I want to do something. What should he or she do first? What's the first class that you would recommend, or how do they start?
Well, you know what, one of the first questions that I ask a student when they talk to me about the program is, can you take a computer apart and put it back together? You know, just sort of to get a feeling for their aptitude. We certainly want people to be familiar with computer hardware. We want them to be familiar with computer software and the ability to do some basic troubleshooting. Okay, and also show an interest in figuring things out. You know, a lot of the work that Mike and I do is really detective work when you get right down to it. But we spend hundreds of hours a year figuring out how things work. So, you know, in order to say that this happened on a computer system or that happened on a computer system, you really have to experience it for yourself. You have to be able to figure out how various programs work, how various protocols work. A lot of what we do is reverse engineering software, computer systems to figure out how they work.
Take them apart to the
Right.
basic.
Yes, and then this way we're able to say we know for a fact, because we've tested it, that this is what needs to happen to create this type of information, that you need to do X, Y, Z to leave this type of footprint on the system, which means that someone accessed the system in a malicious fashion, or perhaps there was a virus that was responsible, or there was a piece of malicious software that was responsible. So really one of the things that I like to see students have is just an interest to learn and the want, if you will, to really get into the system, get their hands dirty, and start reverse engineering some of these programs and some of these processes.
It's very exciting. Do you have any gender imbalances in your classes? Is it both women and men interested in this field?
Yeah, in my experience, they're both interested in the field, and I wouldn't say that it's equal, but there's not enough of a statistical difference for me to go, oh, there's sure are a lot more guys than women that want to get involved in it.
It does seem like a career field for both.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's no question.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful. I want to thank you both for what you've done for this college. You know, it's a very exciting field. I've been wanting to interview for a long time, interview you about this subject, because I think the students are excited about it and they benefit from it, and it's a growing field. So I want to thank you both for being here today and for being our guests on Edmonds Community College today, and thank you all for being with us too. My name is Mauri Moore. Good day.
Hi, I'm Dick Van Hollebeck. We're really glad that you're watching Edmonds Community College television, but I'd be willing to bet you that you don't know what station you're watching, what channel you're on. And that's for two reasons. One is we did a very unscientific survey and we found that about 9 out of 10 of you start by saying something like, well, you know, I was surfing, channel surfing, and by gosh, I came across something really interesting and it ended up being your station. Another reason would be that we're not on just one channel, we're actually on 3. Let me explain. In Edmonds, in the city limits of Edmonds, if you have Comcast cable, we're on channel 26. If you're in South Snohomish County, but outside of Edmonds, we're on channel 21. And if you happen to be a Frontier cable subscriber, we're on channel 38. So here's what we're going to do. We want to make life just a little bit easier for you, and of course we want you to watch us. So every hour on the hour, we're going to show all of our day programming on there. So you can see what's on. We're also going to show the 3 channels so you'll know which one is appropriate for you. But as they say, wait, there's more. Now you can access us on your computer, or on your iPad, or on your iPhone. On the internet, you go to iTunes University. That address is scrolling on your screen right now. Or you can go to vimeo.com. That is also showing on your screen. And you can access over 500 programs that we have in our catalog. Really interesting interviews or documentaries, things that I think you'll really enjoy. At Edmonds Community College, we like to say that community is our middle name. And by that we mean you are so important to us. We are here to serve your needs. We hope you'll avail yourself of these wonderful opportunities. Thanks for watching.